Hey everybody, Karen here. Welcome back to Unpinned Creative and the next episode in our Creative Healing series. So last week we got some background done on our pages, and I had a plan for what we were doing today, and then I was looking at this page and Jerry mentioned to me, beautiful Jerry, who is one of my subscribers and regular watchers, mentioned to me that she saw an angel in this background. And so I hadn't seen that, but obviously had to go back and have a look. And I still aren't sure if I've seen what she's seen, but what I did see was two heads here and wings on each side. There. You might not be able to see that from through the camera, but the heads are there and then the wings are here, and I love that, and that changes everything that I was going to do with this page. So my point with this is be prepared to go with the flow. Going with the flow in the healing process is really, really important, because you can have ideas of where you're going and what track you're on, and then all of a sudden all of that changes. And so something that we really have to learn when we're healing is how to not be stalled or brought to an abrupt halt by a change in plans or a change in, something that is happening. So what I'm going to do is this has given me a different idea for this page. I see two people standing back to back, and with these wings kind of wrapping around them, and so that is where I'm going to take this page now. So what I've done in the meantime is I have put some backgrounds down on the page that I left blank. Now I would say this was completely meant to be. If you remember, I left this first page blank because I thought I might come back to it later, and once I'd figured out what the theme of the book was going to be. And then in this book, I just went ahead and created the background for this page to put my name on. So I would say that the way this is going, the flow of this is that this is how it was meant to be. Jerry was meant to point out to me that she had seen an angel in this background so that I could go back and have a deeper look, a more in-depth look, a longer, harder look at it, and then change the direction I was going and put my name page on this first page that I had left blank. So my point, I guess, is that sometimes things happen for a reason, and instead of fighting it or questioning it or overthinking it, we just have to go with it, follow our intuition, and do what feels right. And so this is what is feeling right for me. So we will definitely come back to this page and finish it off, but I'm going to do my name page on this first page. So I laid down a foundation layer, which or underpants, as Laurie Marie Jenkins calls them. And I just wanted to make a couple of points. While I was doing that, I just thought of a couple of points. I'm not sure if I mentioned in the first video when we did this, or second video. You can make this foundation layer as beautiful as you want it to be, or as ugly as it turns out, or you can use pretty papers to make this foundation layer if you want to. You don't have to use book pages or scrap paper, or this is your foundation layer, so make it what you like. You can cover the whole page or leave bits blank. So I've left this space empty because it had the withdrawn stamp from the library there, and I wanted that to be, didn't want to cover that up, so I left that out. And then there are a couple of other pages, couple of other places that I haven't completely covered either. So my point is to, again, in the going with the flow thing, do what feels right. If you have a little gap like this that you can't find a piece to cover it up with, then don't. Just leave it Just leave it blank. That's perfectly okay. And it kind of relates to these are the building blocks, these are the foundations that we're laying in our healing process. And although it won't be seen most likely in the end result, each layer is really important, and we can make it as beautiful as we want it to be, regardless of whether anyone else is going to see it. So it's like looking deep within ourselves. We know what's there. No one else can see it, most likely, but we know what's there, and that's all that matters. In today's day and age, especially with YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all the social media, we often feel, I don't know, it's not obligated, but we often put everything out there. We feel like we have to explain ourselves. We feel like we have to prove ourselves. We feel like we have to show the world who we really are, and be inspiring and be beautiful and be all these things, and put it all out there in front of the world. And with this book, with this creative healing process, I feel like I'm yelling, so this must be really important information I'm giving you. I don't mean to yell, I'm sorry. With this book, with this creative healing process, this is a place that is just for you. This is a place where we are laying foundation layers, where those foundation layers can be imperfect or completely the opposite of something we want to portray to the rest of the world, because it's going to get covered up. It's an integral part of the process of creating the page, but it doesn't have to be the end result. It's just one building block along the way. So I just wanted to make that point clear. And while I'm giving you these techniques and explaining all this stuff to you and showing you how to do it, please keep in mind that you have to follow your intuition. You are completely welcome to go off track and do something completely different to what I'm doing. Just whatever feels right to you, working with the materials that you've got and the energy that you have, the time that you have, and whatever inspiration you have. So feel free to follow me exactly, or go completely off track and, do your own thing. I'm 100% okay either way. It's very hard to offend me, just so you know, but please don't try. All right, so I'm going to quickly cover this up with some gesso, seeing as this is now my name page. I don't want to make this episode boring for you, and I'm really going to try hard to work and talk at the same time so that we can get more accomplished in an episode, and you guys can move forward with your books. Keeping in mind, though, that this is not a fast process. It's not meant to be a fast process. The goal is not the finished page, even though that's the fun and exciting part. The goal is to enjoy the process. We are working on the art of creating, not creating art. I'm going to keep saying that line over and over again, probably in every video. Because the importance of this process, this creative healing process, is the process itself, not the art, the finished result. Although we want the finished result to be a good outcome, you have to put the effort into the process, right? That's where the energy and all of that needs to go. And so we have to enjoy that process. Otherwise, what's the point? And otherwise, our art won't feel good to us. So we need to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, stop, take a breather, come back to it another time if you feel like it, if you want to. All right, so there's my gesso on the page. I'm going to shut the book. Squish it all down. I'm leaving this dust jacket on there for now. It won't stay on there, but I'm leaving it on there because it's going to end up getting really cool mediums on it, like this piece of sellotape that now has green paint and die on it. I love that, and I will at some stage pull that off and use that in an art journal page or a junk journal page. All right. So there is my newly gessoed page, and this will become my name page, and I'm going to leave that aside to dry properly, and then we can come back and work on that another time. One thing also that I wanted to talk to you about was the covers for these journals. Now we need to start thinking, now is a good time to start thinking about the covers, and I really wanted to throw that open to you guys to let me know what you want to see on the cover, what you want me to create or show you how to create for your covers. So there are two ways we could do it. You could tell me exactly the technique that you want to learn for the cover, or you can just give me a theme, a random theme. You can make it as crazy as you like, and I will come up with a cool cover to create with you. And we've got two, so I can pick two different ideas, completely different ideas to do with you. So for example, if you want to learn how to create a door, so say, Karen, can we create a door to a fairy world, or a door to a, you know, medieval kingdom, or a door to space, or, you know, then yeah, we can totally do that. So if you want to learn how to create trees, we can do that. If you want to learn how to do a castle, the front of a castle, a stone path, you know, whatever you can think of, pop it in the comments, give me lots of ideas, and I'll probably put up a poll after I've chosen a few, or I might just think, holy moly, that is a brilliant idea, yes, I'm doing that, and pick one. But yeah, give me some ideas on what you'd like to see. Otherwise I'll just create something, you know, something that whatever comes into my mind. And while I'm here and we're talking about covers, I'll give you guys a quick sneak peek of the cover I have just finished for my Defirmember journal. So I've just finished doing the front of this cover. I have filmed it all. I am up to the editing stage. I'll edit it and put it all together. This part down here is still dry, and that's why it looks like it's white. And so I just have to do the inside covers, and then I can put that video up. It's very dark and rainy again here today, I'm sorry, so the light is shining on that, but that is the cool cover. So I have done a 3D tree on that. So yeah, just let me know what you want to see me do on the covers of these healing journals, and I will come up with something cool for you to create. I want to get onto that now because we'll start doing it. It takes such a long time to do covers like this because there's a lot of dry time and stuff like that. So what we'll have to do is start doing the cover in amongst doing pages on our books. Alright, so just also before we start on getting more background done on this, now would be a good time to glue together the next 3 pages in your book if you haven't already done them all. I like to, once I have this, you know, once I'm partway through the page I'm working on, I start thinking about the next page and gluing the pages together so that they have time to dry properly before I'm ready to work on them. And then once they're dry, putting down the base layer as well. So that's something that you can think about as we get ready to move on to the next page. We're not there yet though. We're going to get some more stuff done on this page. So I initially thought after I'd done this, I love this background so much, I'm totally okay to just leave it like it is and not add any more to it. But that's a little bit boring for you guys, and and also today I was like, oh no, I'm going to add some more to it. So let's add some more to it, because again, it's all layers. It's layers and layers and layers, and that's what human existence is. Layers and layers and layers, creating us and creating our world and our life. So we're going to add some more to this. Excuse me for a moment. Okay, I've had to turn the more lights on because it's getting very dark here now. It is still pouring with rain, which is which it's done for most of the summer here in New Zealand. And we have had some bad flooding, but thankfully where I am, we've been okay so far. All right, background for this. So this book, because I love the goth feel of it, the dark feel of it, and that has been a theme that I have enjoyed for a large part of my life. Lots of black, and I love things like, close your ears, Jerry, bats and spiders and, you know, all that kind of gothy stuff. So I really wanted to keep this book in that theme. So that theme is not for everyone. I completely understand that. So just remember that regardless of where I go with the color scheme and design of this book, you can use the same techniques with your own colors and materials and stuff like that. Okay, I want to add some more texture to this page because texture. I love the organic feel of mixed media pages. I love running my hands over stuff. I am one of those people who had to be told not to touch and still do. So it wasn't my kids. My kids learned not to touch stuff in shops really easily and are very good at it, but I am very bad. I have to touch everything. I am a touchy-feely person when it comes to texture and stuff like that. So we're going to add some more texture. Now I'm going to use a stencil and some texture paste. If you don't have stencils, what else could you use? So many different things. You could use bubble wrap. I often use bubble wrap to create texture using texture paste. So I just get a piece of bubble wrap, put texture paste over the top and plop it down on the page. You can create your own stencil. If you go and check out day 18 of my Defemorember playlist, the goldfish page, you will see I create my own stencil there and explain to you how to do that. Just see what you have that could be used to create a pattern. So packaging is a really good place to start. Plastic packaging. It's amazing when you really look at it, the texture and patterns that you get from plastic packaging. Texture paste. This is homemade texture paste. I've shared the recipe before. I can't remember what video. It's just Mod Podge, gesso, and corn and starch based baby powder. That's what I use, but I believe you can use just plain old cornstarch in place of the baby powder. It is Laurie Marie Jenkins' recipe for texture paste. You can either search her name and texture paste and it will come up. She's done a whole video on the creating of it. Or if you want the recipe and can't find it in my videos, just let me know in the comments and I will give it to you. If you don't have texture paste, what else could you use? You could use gesso. You could use white acrylic paint. You could try adding cornstarch or sand or something with some substance to it to white acrylic paint or gesso and see if that gives you a good result. You know, experiment, try it out. The other things you could use are crushed up eggshells. They make a really cool texture on a page. I just really encourage you to look around and see what you've got that you could use to create some texture and a pattern on your page. Okay, so this is what I have so far, and I'm just deciding if that's enough or if I want to add a wee bit more. Let's add just a tiny bit more. So this palette knife I actually got from a baking shop. It's for cake making, but you don't have to use a palette knife. Just use a normal bread and butter knife if if that's all you've got, or just a heavy piece of card. You can use that as kind of a spatula. You know, anything that is flat that you can smush over your stencil or whatever you're using for a stencil. So I'm not being too careful, obviously. I am getting it everywhere, and I'm okay with that because I like the messy, grungy look, but you can be much more careful, obviously, with whatever you're doing. Now, if you're using something for a stencil that you want to keep and use again, make sure you go and wash it off straight away because the texture paste will ruin it. So I'm going to quickly do that now. Alright, while I was gone, I dried this off with my heat gun. It's really important to let this dry completely and each layer to dry completely as you go, so that we don't end up with issues later on. And clean your palette knife as well of your texture paste, because a smooth palette knife is good to have. And that texture paste will dry and stick on there. Okay, what I wanted to talk to you about now is the importance of following your intuition. In this process, so say we're doing something like this and an idea pops into your head of something that you could do, go ahead and do it and see what happens. Usually it leads to amazing things, and or if not that, it could be something that is important for you to think about. So I had an idea for this page right from when I had done this background, and slowly that is evolving because today I decided I wanted to do this texture paste. So this idea is evolving and going in a different direction now. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's important to not be so fixed on an idea that you can't slightly alter course and see where that takes you, because we can always go back and do another page. We can always go back to our original idea and do another page, but if we don't try things, you know, as the opportunity arises, then we might forget and miss out on something even more amazing. With this texture paste, if you have little bits that pop up that you don't want on the page, you can just knock them back with a bit of sandpaper or pick them off before they're completely dry. But otherwise I am pretty happy with where this is. Now, the other important part of this process is between each layer to stop and take a few minutes to really look at what you've got. So for example, looking at this page, this pattern reminds me of scales, of snakeskin or dragon scales, reptile kind of scales, and the direction that takes me in, if I really think about what that means with regards to myself and my healing process. So when I think about snakeskin, for example, snakes shed their skin, and many times over their lifetime they completely shed their outer layer, right, and a new one is underneath. And I think maybe that's something that I haven't thought about too much, although it's something that I acknowledge. I change frequently, and sometimes you don't need to go too in depth into what the page or the layer is bringing up for you, but just acknowledge it and, you know, just note it. Something like, this page makes me think of a snake shedding its skin. Oh yeah, I've shed my skin a few times over this lifetime, and then I can leave it at that if I want to, or I can take it further and completely change the direction of this page to reflect a snake shedding its skin. I'm not going to do that, but I could. And sometimes I will. For example, this page here, where I now see the two people standing back to back, when that when I saw that image, then I started to get all these ideas of what I could do with this page, and it became such a strong feeling that I really want to do that with this page. So I'm going to, hence changing direction and now doing this page for my name page. So I guess the theme of today's episode is the importance of flow and going with the flow and being okay with change. And kind of the weather at the moment here in New Zealand, and I know in lots of other places in the world, that kind of highlights the importance of going with the flow in our everyday lives, because weather can change our plans just like that, right? So and the more we resist that or fight against it or are upset by it, I guess the harder it makes the rest of our day or the rest of our week or whatever like that. So it is a good kind of learning tool for being able to let go of a direction you were heading in and change to another direction. Now, I'm not saying that you have to change really quickly, but to just allow that change, sit with it, see where it takes you, see where you're going, be open to what might come up next. Okay, so I have dried this off, I think enough to carry on with. So I'm going to add some colour to this texture paste. So there's a number of different ways I can do that. Obviously with paint, I can just paint over the top of it. I could use an ink pad and just run an ink pad over the top. I could use felt pens, I could use watercolour pencils. I think what I'm going to do is actually use, I'd quite like this to be metallic. So I did the metallic over top of the black tissue paper. So I think I'd like to give this texture paste a metallic kind of tint, I suppose, as well. So to do that, I am going to... Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I got a phone call and then, things just happened. I usually like to film these videos all in one go without stopping so that you can see the real process. Today is a bit of a mixed up day for me, however, so but I still wanted to get it out for you. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Right, back to colouring this. So you could use an ink pad, and all I would do is take an ink pad and rub it over the top like so, and then you'll get a nice layer of colour just on those white bits. You'll get a little bit on the background as well, but it will definitely colour the white and stand out of the texture paste. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go over what I just did. I'm going to use the same paint that I used on the black tissue paper when I dry brushed it. So I'm just going to take that paint and a brush, and I'm just going to pop a bit onto a palette. I use an ice cream lid and I use it over and over and over again. I just put layers and layers on it, and then I'm going to water that down quite a bit. So you could use watercolour, like I said, or pastels, or crayon even, or watercolour pencils, anything you like to colour it. So I'm just going to make that a bit runny, and then I'm just going to lightly brush over the top. So I'll get some on the background and the where that texture paste is. But the texture paste should stand out more because it's white is what I'm hoping. So yes, today is a bit of a mixed up day. So my youngest is, he suffers from severe anxiety. He's autistic, and this year, so he's been at home with me for the last 4 years. I had to pull him out of school, and anyway, this year he's decided to go to Polytech, which is like, it's like trade school, I guess. I'm not sure what you call it in the US or in other countries. Technical college maybe, or something like that. Anyway, he really, really wants to go and make some friends and that sort of stuff. So they just called me to set up a meeting to have an interview to see about that. I'm not sure how it's going to go, because honestly, he doesn't even go to his grandmother's by himself, or he doesn't have friends or go to other people's houses at all. He doesn't do anything by himself. So I'm not sure how going to Polytech 4 days a week is going to go, but the point is that he wants to, and he's going to give it a go. So I'm very proud of him. And then also today, he's actually at his grandmother's for the first time since he was little, very, very little, and they've gone to learn about, they've gone to take a cooking class from a neighbour of my mum's, and she's from Singapore, and she does really amazing cooking and often drops it over to mum, and my mum shares it with us. And Kai loves international cuisines and stuff like that, and baking and stuff like that, so he's gone to have a little class to learn how to make some international food with them. So I am crossing my fingers and also keeping an eye on my phone to make sure that he's not freaking out, and that he's doing okay. I'm sure he'll be fine. He has come such a long way over the last few years. We've been working really hard on getting him to a stage where he can be more independent and stuff. So, and it's only for an hour or two. So I'm sure he'll be fine. Anyway, that's why today is a bit mixed up. Right, I'm just going to see if I can take a little bit off the background of that. I might turn the lights off now. It's got a bit brighter here. There we go. So that is kind of a very pale metallic blue silver colour. So I don't know if you can see, but it looks quite different on the white than it does on the black, and that's cool. I'm really happy with that. So it's important to try out different mediums on different bases, because you'll often get quite a different result. So yep, alrighty, that's where we're at with that. Now what? Let me see what we can do next. How long have we been going for? Only 30 minutes. Okay, that's cool. All right, so now I have to decide so I probably need to take a few minutes to look at this page. You don't always need to know where you're going next. You don't have to have every step in order prepared before you start. And I never do. Never. I kind of come up with stuff as I'm going, and that works for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. But what I like to do between layers is stop, take a few minutes, look at the page, see what comes into my head, and think about where I want to go next. Do I want to keep adding texture? Am I ready to put my name on the page? That sort of thing. So always remembering that this page, the idea of this page, and the idea is it's our name page, and we want it to be a representation of ourselves, of everything encompassed by our name. So let me bring in one of my other books. I'll pop this aside for a moment. So if we look at this name page here, I explained how I did this in my last video. So I really liked the idea of the growth of the vine. I liked the idea that my name was represented by something that grows, and grows vigorously is hard to kill. I did this a few years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, or maybe even 4 years ago now. And it was at a stage where I wasn't particularly well. Everything was a struggle. I was fighting, I often felt, for my life. And the vine, if you've ever had to deal with vines in your garden, you'll know how hard they are to get rid of. And they just keep coming back. You cut them down, you cut them off, you know, and they just keep growing back. And so that was kind of the representation I was feeling at that time. What I wanted my name to represent was someone who was hard to kill. Like, you could throw anything at me, and believe me, life has thrown a lot at me, but I kept getting back up and I kept coming back and being, you know, and growing and learning and thriving. I finally feel like now, maybe just in the last year, I've started to really thrive, and you know, my life has become lush and full and purposeful. So yep. So that's where this came from. The other thing that I added, so obviously I added some more vines in this is like a trim to keep that theme. And then down here I've put some, oh sorry, I'm off the screen, skeleton leaves and a little flower, just to add to the theme. And then I also included my most favorite quote of the time. So at the time I was very into, my actual job was altering clothing and creating custom clothing and stuff like that. And this was a quote that I had kept with me for years and years and years, and it's still one of my favorites. And the quote is, "She never looked nice, she looked like art, and art wasn't supposed to look nice, it was supposed to make you feel something." And that is a quote by Rainbow Rumer, I think her name might be. Excuse me. And it was from a novel that she had written, and I can't remember what the name of the novel is, I'm sorry. But I love that kind of represented everything about me, that, you know, art isn't supposed to look nice. And this is a good thing to remember while you're creating art. It's not about making something that's pleasing to the eye of other people. And same with your healing process. It's not about doing something and healing in a way that is pleasing to the thoughts and feelings and ideas of other people. It is completely and utterly about how you are feeling, and getting to a stage where you're feeling something. Because often in the healing process, and for me, for a good number of years, I was just completely numb. I was numb to all the things life was throwing at me. I was, you know, it just, nothing, I just didn't feel, I just stopped feeling, because I'd felt so much physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, and anguish, and, you know, grief, and all of these things, that I just stopped feeling. And I guess that was a survival tactic, to be numb. But this has gone in a totally different direction to where to what I was planning. But anyway, so that quote, art isn't supposed to look nice, it's supposed to make you feel something. And the only person that your art needs to relate to or make feel something is you. And I really want you to remember that. It doesn't have to look good. It can look good, it can look amazing, and I have no doubt that it will. Whatever you create will be fantastic. It might take you a while to come around to that. And I'll tell you something about that in a minute. But the most important thing is that it reminds you of a feeling. It makes you feel something. It gives you hope, or it gives you closure, or it gives you confidence, or it gives you inspiration, or it, makes you feel love or joy or any of those feelings that, or sadness even. It doesn't always have to be a positive feeling. The point is that it relates to you, and your thoughts and feelings about this page that you're creating are all that matter, are all that important, and that are important in this journal. So yeah, please remember that. I really want you to keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're creating, and when you get to a stage and you think, oh, this looks terrible, so many times I have created art that I think is awful, just awful, and I will put it away and I'll shove it in a cupboard or stick it on a shelf, and years later or months later or weeks later I'll come back to it and open it up and I'll be like, actually that's pretty good, that actually, I remember doing that and I remember how I was feeling, and so sometimes the feelings we have in the moment are different to what we will feel down the track. And so it would be good, if you really hate something, not to destroy it, but to pop it away, hide it somewhere, and then see how you feel about it later on. So in this instance where you're working in your art journal, if you create something you hate, I really urge you not to destroy it. Just leave it, turn the page, start working on something else. You never have to go back to that page if you don't want to, but don't destroy it or get rid of it, because it's a part of this process, and sometimes the process isn't fun. A lot of times it won't be fun, and sometimes it feels bad and it looks bad, and and there's no hope. So I don't want you to dwell on it or try and rip it out of your life, or, I want you to just turn the page. Turn the page, leave it there, turn the page. You can come back to it later if you want to. You don't ever have to go back to it, but don't get rid of it, because it's a part of you and it's a part of the journey. And that's important. It's all important. Okay. So that went down track I wasn't intending on going, but it must have been an important one. So yeah, so this name, that was the kind of background layer of this page. And then I also put on it, that was just a line out of the poem, She Looked Like Art, out of the quote. And then on the back I actually put the roots of my name and where it had come from and what it means, just for a bit of fun and, kind of to make me realize that my name, as much as I haven't liked it for a long time, or as much as it made me cringe when I heard it, which has nothing to do with the name itself, but is all, self-confidence issues probably, and blah blah blah, self-acceptance issues. It gave me the realization that my name has a long history, and that it can mean something else than the connotations that I have attached to the name, and blah blah blah. Anyway, that's that. That's enough about that name. How did we get there? How did we get to that stage? Let's bring in this book with this name. This one, so I'd done this book was my second art journal, or is my second art journal. It's very much unfinished. and for this one, I had got to a much happier place in life, I feel. And so I wanted to bring back and remind myself of some of the things I really enjoyed, which are fabric. I love fabric and textiles. Obviously, it's been a big part of my life for a long time as a sewer. And I love sewing, and I love excitement and adventure, and this kind of collection or collage of different fabrics and stuff kind of reminded me of adventure and far off exciting places and things like that, and fun and joy. So that's where the inspiration for this name came, for creating this nameplate came from. It was all about, so when I look at this name, Karen, and at this stage when I would, if I was introducing myself to someone, that is what I wanted that name to encompass: fun and adventure and, fabric and textiles and the joy of creating and all of that stuff. So, I don't know if any of this is making sense to you, but that's all stuff to think about when you are thinking about starting your name in your journal. What that name encompasses for you at the moment, what you want it to encompass, and all the things it's like a bubble of things that you hand to someone when you hand your name to them, describing you. And I'd like you to try and make it fun and positive rather than negative. So rather than, there are lots of things that my name would encompass, especially at those times. So let's go back to this one. So I could have incorporated a lot of sadness and grief and darkness and depression and, all those things into this name at that time. But I want it to be kind of a positive thing. So the vine was a really good representation of that, because it's a negative thing in a garden, right? If you're a gardener, you don't want this vine or anything like that. But what it represents is strength and resilience and, a comeback, coming back and coming back and coming back. So that's the positive side of a negative place, I guess. I really hope this is making sense to you. I will probably cover this kind of stuff later on, as we go along in the series. I really just speak what comes into my mind as I'm filming and talking to you. So, right. Despite my intention to get a lot done today, once again, I have done a lot of talking and not achieved much. But I hope it has given you some ideas on adding texture to your page. So you can carry on and add more texture. You can find some different things to add texture with. So, for example, I might bring in some bubble wrap now and even just paint and add some more. I'm probably not going to. I quite like this as it is. And I think I'm finally ready to start putting my name on the page. Please ask questions if you're stuck in the comments, and I will do my best to help you. Please let me know how you think this is going. If you're enjoying this, if it's too slow for you, just so that I can get a feel for what I need to change or what I need to do better. But I'm going to leave it there for today because we've already been going for nearly an hour, and I don't want to end up boring you to death. All right. Thank you so much for joining me again. I hope you have got something out of it, even though we haven't progressed very far yet. But also know that you're welcome to just carry on. You do your own thing. with your book, I'm just giving you some tips and tools on what I do for if you're stuck. But if you know what you're doing and you're perfectly comfortable with the creating side, please go ahead and start creating. Move ahead. There are more pages in the book we can fill up if I start doing something you want to do too. Yeah. All right. Hopefully that all makes sense. I will leave it there, and I'll see you in a few days with the next one. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye. One more thing, just for fun. Look at this dude. This is Archie. Doesn't he have the most beautiful eyes? And the most gorgeous face. I love him. He's not mine. He doesn't even live here, but he spends every day with me. He's my son's cat, who lives in a granny flat on the same property, but whenever he goes to work, Archie comes over and spends the day with me, and I love him. And he fits in fairly well with the rest of our cats. Susu Girl isn't very impressed with him, but, she puts up with him and lets him know when she's had enough. All right, goodbye.